broadcaster, Next Step Pregnancy and Solutions in Clarion. I'm Tanya, and this is
I'm Heather.
Heather is our nurse manager, and I'm the program coordinator for our Next Step Choices program. So for several weeks now, we've been bringing you some podcasts about from our virtual course called Bright Course, and a lady named Pam Stencil, who is a well-known speaker around the world. She talks about her own experiences with character, sexual integrity, sexual assault, things like that. And she just has this really great series that we have on our Bright Course that we've been really enjoying, and we wanted to share some of that with our viewers and give you a little bit of insight to what she's talking about, and have some deep conversations about some things that need to be talked about.
Yep, I agree. She's good. She's got some good stuff.
Yeah.
So on that note, this week we are talking about a deep subject. We are talking about pornography. I think it's a subject that doesn't get talked about. It's one of those hush-hush type subjects, you know. I know myself as a mom, and, you know, when your kids get to that age, not so much with the girls, but, you know, with the boys, sex is an awkward topic. I mean,
oh, yes, it is.
I mean, and you as a single mom, like, you didn't have the dad to, like, have that topic. And my husband, you know, that's not his forte. I'm the nurse, so it was kind of like, hey, you need to talk to them about all that stuff.
Yeah.
Because you know the details of it. Well, yeah, I don't want to talk about that. So, and pornography falls along that line. You don't want to think of your children or even your spouse, like, engaging in this. So it's one of those, like, topics I think people avoid.
Yeah. They do in secret.
It's
shameful. It is shameful.
Yeah.
Which we're definitely gonna touch on that for sure. The shame of it and the secrecy. So Pam starts out in her intro about is pornography harmless? Okay, which we kind of even addressed that. No, it's not. Okay. So she says that many young people believe that pornography or cyber sex is a good alternative to actual sex, which I did not know that.
Think about it. I mean, if you have
sense.
Even a Christian young man, you know, they come to an age where they start having those feelings and they don't want to have sex because they know having sex is wrong, and they've been told not to have sex before marriage. But what do they do with this?
Right.
It you know, it kind of pushes them in that direction.
Yeah.
So there's an area that would need to be addressed. What do they do with that?
Yeah. And they're so easily exposed to it.
Oh,
too.
That's huge.
Yeah. So they think that if it's an alternative to sex, that they can't get pregnant, they can't catch a sexually transmitted disease, and their hearts can't be broken. It's just harmless images on the screen. It's not going to affect my life. But they don't really know the long term, what it does in the long term. So that's kind of some of the things that we're going to talk about. How pornography affects the brain, how it affects the body, the impact it has on our intimate relationships, and also how we view other people based on these images that we see. And it's pretty. It's very damaging.
It is very damaging, and even on a global effect, like society as a whole. I was just watching a video, and I'm not real good at recalling numbers, but
that's fine.
They were saying they gave the amount of pornography that is viewed every minute, and then they went on to say how much money is spent just in the United States in a year on pornography, and how many people that same money could feed.
Right.
And it was like billions and billions of dollars. So it's not even just a personal thing. I mean, this is one of those sins that just has ripple effect and encompasses everything.
I mean, you even look at the things right now going on with sex trafficking.
Yeah.
How much of that goes back to pornography?
Right. Yeah.
And the images that people have seen, and then they've taken that and they've made it reality, you know, and projected that into their lives and their behavior and the things they're doing to other people.
Right.
You know.
Right.
So.
Right. And how many of sex traffickers, or maybe if they're not being used as in individual appointments for the porn industry, for making the videos and And the people that are in those videos are real people. They're not cartoon characters.
Yeah, and actually now that you bring that up, I was watching 2020 about probably 10 years ago. I always have 2020. I used to watch it all the time. And there was a girl on there, I think she was 16 when she left home, and she found herself in the porn industry. And they did a whole series on her, and she was so damaged from doing porn. She said it was very graphic, which I don't know that they should have done that, because I feel like sometimes like I can't even get those images that I saw out of my head, and I wasn't somebody who was trying to watch it. But I know they showed this. She was going to do that she was going to film or whatever, and she thought she was only going to be with one person, and in walks 10 men. She was 17. She goes, and I didn't know that. That's rape. Yeah. And she acknowledged that. When she started talking about it, she's like, I didn't know that's what was going to happen. Nobody told me, and I just had to lay there.
Oh, that makes me sick.
It is sickening. But you know what? I think it's like, the thing is, people don't have these honest conversations.
They don't.
And so we don't think about it. We don't think about what's really going on. I just want to make sure it says recording. It doesn't. Okay.
That makes me
Yeah.
I think sometimes that girls look at it like some kind of something magical.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like fairy tale, not on the good side, but it's being like that girl, like she was okay with it being one person, and that was kind of like a, that was okay, and she would feel good about that, but the ugliness behind it. Because I actually had a girl not too long ago, a teenage girl, make a comment about, well, so what if I get sex trafficked? At least my life will have something interesting. Like somehow it's a desirable thing. It's exciting. And it's not. It's so the opposite. It's like the poison apple. Like somehow it's made to look like glamour and love and desire, and it's so void of all of those things.
Yeah. So since Heather said that, that's actually some of the things that we're going to talk about. I actually, with the 2020 thing, I might have got ahead of myself a little bit, because we actually, pornography is non-harmless. Pam says it has real victims, real damage to countless people, and we're going to look at some of the reasons she says that. Like the first one, it devalues and dehumanizes people, men and women.
Right.
Okay. But especially women. Women are seen as objects to be used for someone's gratification. And it's important because it is a process of dehumanizing a person that makes violence against them much more acceptable.
Right. When people have no value, you can do anything to them.
Right. And that's a big thing that we talk about today. That's kind of like in the front lines, is empowering women not being dehumanized, even though there's more women in the world than men. I think it's like 3 to 1. Women feel inferior. They feel like they're not respected. They feel like they're not heard. And porn is a big reason behind that. I mean, if you've got men looking at these images all the time of women are weak and I can overpower them and I can do whatever I want to them, well, how does that trickle down?
Right, they're here to serve me.
Yeah.
That brings another piece of this up. The way that it just really lost my train of thought.
That's all good. Me too. I'll give you a second.
It'll come back eventually. It'll come up somewhere else in here.
Okay. Do you want me to continue?
Yeah, keep going.
All right.
Sorry.
It's okay. So the second point she makes is it's often violent, which you kind of touched on. 87% involves violence against women. There's actually a 2010 study that says 90% of the scenes contain physical aggression and 50% verbal. Okay, so 80% of these show violence against women. It's not a loving, intimate relationship. This is about control, dominance, pain, or pain is pleasure. You made me that pain is pleasure. And so.
I mean, this is off the topic, but on the topic, 40 Shades of Grey.
Yeah, I've never watched it.
I mean,
did you watch it?
it was on last week.
It has been on TV, which is frightening. Yes.
It was. I know, and that's what made me think of this. I'm like, I had never watched it, never read the book, and I remember when it was like first came out, and different Christian women were reading the book and like talking about it, and at the time I'm like, oh, that sounds like something I probably shouldn't do, and not.
You're curious though, aren't you?
Yeah. So I was curious. And
I
like watched the tail end of the first one. I guess it was 2 weekends ago, and I thought, those scenes do replay in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, and it's completely aberrant behavior. Mm-hmm. It is completely aberrant behavior. That is not the normal relationship. Mm-hmm. People don't have a sex dungeon in their house with whips and chains and all of the stuff that was in that. And I thought, but it was portrayed with the background of this relationship and how the woman was ultimately would change the man.
Yeah.
And so often that's the case.
Yeah.
That the woman desires to make changes in the man. But if you look at that, and it is on like regular time, and they were playing like, I guess there's 2 or 3 of them now. There's sequels.
Yeah, I think there's 2. Yeah.
They had them all playing.
For children.
Yeah, for anybody. I mean, I just happened upon it. It wasn't. I wasn't looking for it. It just, and I was like, oh, what's this? And then before you know it. Yeah.
I know.
And that's completely abnormal.
Yeah.
There's nothing normal about what goes on.
Well, it becomes more about, to me, that says it's more about the act of sex and just about pleasure, not about the relationship, the intimacy. That is what is void in that. Going on to number 3, we just talked about it's easily accessible to children. I have found in my own raising my kids that even putting filters on YouTube, they still get access to pornographic images, sexually explicit images and videos. And actually, that's a crime. That's a crime to expose kids to that stuff.
Is it like legally prosecuted?
Like you as an adult cannot show a child pornography. You can't show them sexual images. So I don't.
How does that work?
So those lines are blurred.
I guess everything virtual stuff is, the lines are blurred. But technically, I think if that's the case, maybe eventually you could prosecute for something.
Yes, like YouTube, because they could definitely filter that a little bit better.
Well, I know even my son, and this was a long time ago, when he was younger, my husband asked him to look up a wench with a 4-wheeler on the computer. And so he typed in wench. What do you think he found?
Right.
He didn't find things for on the 4-wheeler.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so easy. Even if they're innocent and doing something, you type a word in that can be misconstrued as something else, and you're flooded.
Yeah.
And once they're there, how's the temptation for an adolescent, particularly an adolescent, anyone, but for an adolescent to be like, oh, I'm curious.
Well, this just happened yesterday, but I was helping my son. He's doing homeschooling 2 days a week, and we were looking up vocabulary words. And I was typing them in, and this is a school computer. And what comes up is a pop-up with, I can't remember, it was something for Hollywood, but it was a nude woman laying on her stomach like this, and she was completely nude. And I'm like, I could hit the X, but I feel like my son would be like, oh, let me click on that picture, Why is that on a dictionary, Webster's dictionary page? Like, that's what's happening to our kids, though.
Yeah,
I mean, and that's something we need to be aware of, is that no matter what, they can go on the most innocent of sites. And this is a school computer, so it should be, I'm assuming it should have a filter on there.
Right.
And this is what's popping up, a nude woman. And I wish I could remember what it said, but it was just very disturbing to me. And I was just like, see, it's kind of, people make a joke, like we say we're after our children.
They are after our children.
It is true. It is true. It's a tool tool of Satan, you
It
know,
is.
to get in the minds of our children. So the next one is teaches women only to enjoy pain and violence during sex, which we kind of touched on. And a lot of times I made a point here that Pam uses the word teach a lot in these points, because that's what it's doing. These images, the videos, it's teaching.
Yep.
Or it's infiltrating the minds of men, women, and children to think a certain way, or
Right.
or desensitize you to certain behaviors.
Yeah. There's a strong relationship. I mean, you continually, repetitively show the same kind of images and the same to a brain. Like you said, you can't get the images out of your brain that you saw on a show
10 years ago.
Yeah, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's strange how the ones that you want to get rid of seem to shine brighter than maybe the ones that you would like to have in the forefront. I don't really understand how that works in the brain. Maybe something I'll have to research, but they definitely do. They jump out at you.
Yeah. So it said women to enjoy pain and violence during sex. So I have this paper here. It's like, how does pornography harm children? So one of the points this makes is pornography's relationship to rape and sexual violence. According to one study, early exposure under the age of 14 years of age, pornography is related to greater involvement in deviant sexual practice, particularly rape. Child molesters and rapists in this study claim to have had at least occasionally been incited to commit an offense by exposure to pornography. So they were actually saying, I watched pornography and it incited something in me to go act on a child or another human being.
Right.
It caused that emotion in them, I guess, if you want to say that, or feeling. The study reported that 53% of them deliberately used the stimuli of sexual scenes to constitute power, but deforming tools of, wait, I think I skipped the wrong page. No, that's right. Okay. Tools to use on their victims.
Wow.
All right. So increasingly graphic forms of pornography has a dramatic effect on how adult consumers view women, sexual abuse, sexual relationships, and sex in general. These studies were virtually unanimous in their conclusions. When male subjects were exposed to as little as 6 weeks worth of standard hardcore pornography, they developed an increased sexual callousness towards women. They began to trivialize rape, developed an appetite for more deviant, bizarre, or violent types of pornography, devalued the importance of monogamy and lacked confidence in their marriage, and viewed non-monogamous relationships as normal and natural behavior.
Everything that goes against what is best for society.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're going to have somebody say that well, that's not them. It's not going to hurt them. You know, they're not going to go out and do these things. They just use it for their own enjoyment. It's not really hurting anything, and that they can control their urges. But physiologically, it actually shrinks the brain. It has a physical effect on the brain. There are CT scans available out there that you can pull up and look at, and it shows the brain. You know, it used to show like the brain on drugs. Well, now it shows the brain on pornography.
Okay.
And it actually has a similar effect as drugs do on the brain. It elicits that dopamine response, that physiological response. So when they watch it, it creates this excitement that, and each time they watch it, you know, after a while, that same video is going to get a little boring, and they're going to need something a little more in depth, maybe a little more erotic, maybe a little more violent, you know, to get the same effect. So they're going to increase they're going to amp up the video or their amount of time spent watching it to get the same effect. Just like someone who's addicted to drugs, you know, they might take, you know, 1 here, and then they need 2, and then 3, and then 4, and then, you know, they just can't live without it, because that is the source of all their pleasure.
Right.
And it's the same thing with pornography. It's the same part of the brain that lights up on the CT scans. It has that same effect. They cannot get pleasure outside of that addiction. So it said that 48% of marriages where one of the spouses is actively involved in watching pornography, end in divorce. 48%. Because again, like addiction, it's like being married to a heroin addict.
Right.
It's so hard to break that cycle. And it can be done. They show, with just like with addiction, as you take away the stimulus and replace it with other joy giving things,
Yeah.
You can regrow those connections in your brain. But it's a long haul.
Yeah.
And then for a family where it's a mom and a dad and kids, mom worries about if it's the dad doing it, that the kids are going to see it, and then removes herself from the situation entirely until. So there's a lot of consequences.
There is.
With pornography.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's an addiction.
It is.
Studies show that porn is addictive, and just like Heather explained, it works on the dopamine in the brain the same way drugs do. I think we had talked about a few weeks ago when we did our last, I think it was on character, we talked about having that accountability partner, finding those people in your life who you can be honest with and say, I have a problem, and they are going to be honest with you and say, yes, you do. But they're also somebody that they're always going to be truthful with you about who you are, whether it's your character, any addiction you're having, your behavior. And you know that whatever they tell you is being said out of love, and they care about you, and they want what's best for you. And I think that some people feel like they don't have that in their lives. But there is definitely, I believe there's always somebody. You might have to search for them, unfortunately, because there's a lot of lonely people in this world who feel like they don't have anybody. But there are definitely organizations out there that people who have loving and caring hearts and a desire to serve and help people change and live their best life. We work for one of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
We want to empower women to know that they don't deserve to be treated as sexual objects. They deserve love. They deserve boundaries. They deserve a partner who cares about them. They deserve dignity and respect. But we want to, really enforce that but it starts on the inside. But you have to have those people, and I think in your life to kind of nourish.
You do. That's another. I'm glad you brought that up, because you said we said early on about how pornography, it occurs in secret. Mm-hmm. This isn't something like that your teenage boy's going to sit in the living room and watch while you're cooking dinner.
Right.
He's going to go to his room or to his friend's house or to the live, wherever they go, that they can be in private. And I, when computers and internet access first came out, I remember thinking we had set our computer up in the living room on purpose because everybody used the same computer, so it was more visible. But now, people have iPads and laptops and smart TVs and all of these ways, and pretty much most kids, not this, my kids never had a TV in their bedroom growing up, and that was always an argument. But kids nowadays all have TVs in their bedroom.
Yeah.
Little kids, like my grandkids, all have TVs in their bedroom, and they have access to these things. So being on top of that, this stuff happens in private because there's a shame. There's a shame that goes along with it. Just like drug addiction. Maybe, I think sometimes people doing drugs kind of get together and they all do drugs, but I don't know if that happens with pornography.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think so.
I think there's even more shame behind that.
Yeah.
I think it's even
put themselves in a quiet place.
Right.
So as a parent, I guess, looking for those behaviors, being aware of what your teen is looking at on their phones, random phone checks, random computer checks. And you know what? It's your right and your responsibility as a parent. So do it. It's not always comfortable, and they won't like you for it. In fact, they may say they hate you, but that's okay. In the long run, they're better off for it.
There's even apps for that. I think we talked about in the last episode about some of the parental apps you can get that connect to your phone, that can connect to your child's smart television or device, and you can make sure that they're not getting access to certain apps. I know a lot of these apps seem harmless. I'm not sure how much time we have left on here, so I don't want to go too much longer because this will shut off. But you can actually filter the access to Snapchat, TikTok, things like that. I just watched a documentary on YouTube about, not YouTube, Netflix, about children, about the tech industry and how it goes after your children and the things like that. And these people who develop these apps don't even allow their own children to be on these apps. That is how dangerous they are. And it's really, it was
Wow.
it was very disturbing.
You should get the name of that.
Yeah, I
put
will.
it up on the
Yeah.
site. So maybe
I can't-
people could want to watch it. Or could watch it.
Yeah. I think it's actually kind of like, what do you call that? The top 10 on
Little
Netflix right now. I
documentary or
actually
something.
canceled my Netflix due to some inappropriate content was on there, but I watched it before I canceled it. So I'm not trying to. Huh? Yes, it did. Yes, I never watched it, but I just thought, you know what? I've been seeing this kind of trend, so I'm not gonna support it, you know. And I think that's kind of what we have to do is kind of just say we're not going to support this sort of
I agree. I'm actually going to be
these images to our children anymore, because we know they're on Netflix more than anything. So anyway, people, we are going to get off of here. I do want to remind me next time to talk to you a little about Terry Crews, the guy who hosts AGT, America's Got Talent, and Kirk Franklin. He's a big time gospel writer, producer, and things like that, and their addiction to porn.
Ooh, okay.
And their relationships with their wives. I didn't get into that.
Yeah.
I wish I would add a timer because we're like 40 minutes. Zoom's going to kick us off. So anyway, if you guys need anything, if you have any questions, please post below in our YouTube page. We'll try to review those and get back to you. If there's anything that you want us to talk about, we can do that too. I'm also going to post the resources for the things that I said. And yeah, so if you need anything, we're at 140 Greenville Avenue, next to Pregnancy and Solutions in Clarion. We are open Monday through Thursday, 9 to 4, Wednesday, 11 to 6. But we also have a line that's 24 hours.
Right. So if you call after hours, you will get attention.
Yeah, and we will get the message. Yep. We're on Facebook as well under Next Step Pregnancy and Solutions. You can contact us that way. Free confidential services, as always. Confidential is huge.
Yeah.
So if you're struggling with any of these things, if we can help you in any way, we'd love to do that. If there's something that we can't help you with, we will definitely point you in the direction to get you the help that you need. But we're always here to listen and be that helping hand, that listening ear. So
your support person.
This is my girl Heather.
Tanya.
And we will see you next time, and we thank you for listening. This is fun.